Stories about giants have existed in human history in different forms. Sometimes called ogres, giants are thought to be creatures so big that the earth trembled when they walked. Many people believe that these stories about giants are just fairy tales, while others believe that giants did exist in our physical world. In this video, we will show you the top 20 most mysterious discoveries of giants. Chinese giants. In 2017, archaeologists unearthed skeletal remains of unusually tall people in Shandong, China. It was believed that these giants may have lived in China some 5,000 years ago. The human-like bones were very huge and strong, and had heights of up to 1.9 meters. Along with these bones, pottery and various jade items were also found. This archaeological finding was more amazing because people in China are not known to be that tall. If China had giants, imagine how tall prehistoric people from other countries would be. Alien skull in Peru. A renowned Peruvian archaeologist discovered what is said to be mummified remains of an alien creature. This creature has a triangle-shaped skull, which is nearly as big as a 20 feet long body. How is that even possible? This does sound like Reddit stories, doesn't it? The strange details of the skull point to the fact that this could be an alien. What's more, scientists have been unable to link the physical features of the skull and the alien body to any of the ethnic groups that have lived on Earth. Seems like this is an extraterrestrial being. The giant skeleton of Saudi Arabian desert. A recent gas exploration activity in a Saudi Arabian desert uncovered the ancient skeletal remains of humans of a phenomenal size. Archaeologists are conducting various studies to find out the true facts relating to these skeletons' origin. However, local people and religious scholars link these gigantic skeletons to a story mentioned in the Holy Quran. The story states that God created a race of tall, big, and powerful people who could put their arm around big tree trunks and break them. This race was named Ad. This powerful race later turned against God, and they were destroyed. Giant skeleton of India. Could there have been a race of giants in India? Well, crowds flocked to an archaeological site where a group of explorers unearthed the skeletal remains of a human of phenomenal size. Measuring 18 feet in height, this must be the tallest human skeleton in India. Tyre Explorations was supported by National Geographic. Experts believed that the giant skeleton was part of remains of ancient people who were created with phenomenal size. Red-haired giants. Archaeologists found remains of red-haired giants in Lovelock, Nevada. Lovelock Cave was first discovered in Nevada in 1913. In the cave, miners found buried treasures, artifacts, and remains of what appeared to be red-haired giants known as Sitka. The Sitka are thought to be a legendary tribe of red-haired cannibalistic giants. Miners in Lovelock Cave also found mummified remains of a man having a height of around 6 feet. All of these instances are proof that there was a time when giants did live on Earth. The footprint of God. In addition to skeletal remains, another thing that proves giant people did exist are footprints. Nearly 100 years ago, a giant footprint was found by a hunter in South Africa. Locals nicknamed it the footprint of God. The footprint was 1.2 meters long, and according to estimates, its owner must have stood 27 feet tall. There are no marks or carvings on the rock indicating that the rock was stepped on while it was in molten form. Estimated to be 3 billion years old, the footprint cannot be of a modern human because at the time, life on Earth was in microscopic stages.
Ek het nou vandag ietsie kom doen wat ek al lankal wou doen en ek het al 'n keer wat gesoek na die giants footprint, maar hier's geen aanduidings nie. En Garmin het nog nooit gehoor van die footprint nie. As 'n mens nie tyd het om te soek na hom nie, dan gaan jy hom nie kry nie. Ek het hom gekry. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tone. Dis 'n redelike lang skraalvoet. Maar as hierdie ooit modder was, iemand het daar geskryf Goliath. Maar dit was definitief nie Goliath nie, want Goliath het 6 tone gehad. Waar is die ander reuse? En waar is die ander spore? Maar dit is redelik groot. Ek wonder as iemand se voet so groot is, hoe groot is hy dan? Dit is my so interessant hoe die debat en opinie skuif oor jare. 'n Paar jaar gelede, jy het nie eens gesoek vir giants nie, die giants is sommer net uitgekom. Want ouens maak video's daarvan en dan sou baie interessante goed, navorsing en so aan oor die giants van die ou tyd. Maar ek het nou onlangs weer gesoek daarna en ek kry niks nie. Al wat ek kry is 'n klomp geoloë wat hulle dasse uitpak en sê, daar was geen giants nie, jy weet. Nou, die oomblik as iemand 'n graad het, dan glo ek nie meer wat hy sê nie. Behalwe miskien is dit dan geneers gratis. Maar teoloog kan jy nie glo nie, geoloog kan jy nie glo nie, dokter kan jy nie glo nie. Maar die Bybel kan jy glo. Natuurlik is die primêre tema van die Bybel nou nie die reëse van die ou tyd nie. Tot jy Bran Godawa se boeke lees en besef jy daar is ver meer gesê in die Bybel oor die reëse as wat ons besef.
In the US alone, there are over 1,000 accounts of large skeletons unearthed across various sites in the past 200 years. Often, these skeletons are over 7 feet tall. Across the world, the story is the same. From an ancient Roman giant to an extremely tall pharaoh, today we'll be looking at the largest human skeletons ever found. Let's begin. Australia's 5-meter skeleton. A group of archaeologists from Adelaide University unearthed a 5.3-meter, 17-foot 4 inches hominid species at the Uluru Archaeological Site. The discovery of the Uluru Archaeological Site in 2014 by researchers from the Australian National University was in itself an exciting find. It led to the discovery of a megalithic civilization that was previously unknown. Near the ruins of that ancient megalithic civilization, archaeologists found the perplexing and extremely large skeleton. According to a University of Adelaide professor, Hans Zimmer, the new find is jaw-dropping. That's because, according to theory, a 5-meter skeleton, or hominid, should not exist. The professor conceded that the skeleton raises more questions and provides minimal answers. Some experts and archaeologists hypothesize that maybe the specimen suffered from an extreme case of gigantism due to an overproduction of growth hormones. Professor Hans insists that such a hypothesis is pure speculation and that only further research will help sort out the truth behind the anomaly. Moreover, such a skeleton is not unique, which means that it's only a matter of time before they find another one. When that happens, it'll be easier to come up with a viable conclusion. Number 9. The Amazonian Giants. A British anthropologist, Russell Dement, together with a team of German researchers, excavated 2 settlements in the Ecuador and Peru Amazon regions and found skeletons that measure between 7 and 8 feet in height. However, he noted that for 25 years, he heard from various sources the stories of large Amazonians, and as a result, dedicated his life to studying Achuar and Shuar Amazon indigenous communities. As a result, he was hopeful that further analysis might lend credibility to the stories that he heard. Preliminary studies indicated that the skeletons belonged to healthy humans who showed no signs of diseases such as hormonal growth problems that often cause gigantism. He sent 2 of the skeletons to Freie Universität in Germany for further analysis. Number 8. Ancient Roman Giant. In 1991, during an excavation in Fidenae, a territory Rome managed, archaeologists found an unusual 6-foot 8-inch skeleton. In today's world, it's normal to come across people who are 6 feet 8 inches tall. However, in ancient Rome, 3rd century AD, this was not so. The average height of men in that period was 5.5 feet. Consequently, a 6-foot 8-inch tall man would have towered over his contemporaries. The archaeological superintendent of Rome at the time noted that during the excavation, the first thing they observed was an abnormally long tomb. Later, during the anthropological examination, they discovered that the bones and limbs were also unusual. Consequently, they sent the skeleton to Simona Minozzi, a paleopathologist at the University of Pisa in Italy. Minozzi's team studied the bones and found skull damage, which is consistent with a pituitary tumor. That kind of tumor affects the pituitary gland, and as a result, it produces excess human growth hormone. Minozzi and his team thus concluded that the skeleton provided enough evidence to support a pituitary abnormality as the cause for gigantism. Number 7. A very tall pharaoh. Scientists, who are part of ongoing research into mummies, reported in 2017 that they might have found the oldest case of gigantism. The scientists believe that the remains, which were first unearthed in 1901, belong to a giant Sennacht, a pharaoh of ancient Egypt. Prior research had already proven that these particular remains date back to the 3rd dynasty of Egypt, which is about 2,400 years before Christ. At the time, the average height of men in Egypt was 5 feet 7 inches. However, this particular skeleton skeleton would have stood at 6 foot 1.6 inches or 1.987 meters tall. Admittedly, kings of ancient Egypt were better fed and probably grew taller than normal men. However, even with this in mind, the scientists noted that this particular skeleton towered over Ramesses II, who is the tallest recorded pharaoh of Egypt at 5 feet 9 inches. The conclusion, therefore, is that the skeleton's long bones showed signs of gigantism, making the Sanakt the oldest known case of the disorder. Number 6. Miami Valley 8 foot 1.5 inch skeleton. In 1899, Edward G. Gebhardt and Edward Kaufman discovered an unusually large fossilized skeleton in Miami Valley, Ohio, while working in a gravel pit. The skeleton belonged to a man who was 8 feet 1.5 inch tall. At the time, it was one of the largest human skeletons ever recorded in human history. Archaeologists noted that the skeleton was of prehistoric age, and according to a Dr. Harlan, a dentist in Miamisburg, the skeleton's teeth were in perfect condition and as human as teeth can be. However, scientists who examined the skull discovered that the skull was of a low order, essentially just a shade higher than the Pithecanthropus erectus that Dr. Dubois found in Java. That puzzled scientists because despite other human features, the skeleton's skull differed little from the head of a present-day gorilla. Number 5. The Irish Curiosity. Technically, the Irish Curiosity's not so much a skeleton that was found, but rather an unusually tall man who lived between 1761 and 1783, and whose skeleton was displayed at the Hunterian Museum after his death. The Irish giant's name was Charles Byrne, and while most accounts put his height at between 8 feet 2 inches and 8 feet 4 inches, skeletal evidence shows that he was just over 7 feet 7 inches. When he was alive, many people made up stories about the cause of his great height, and one popular story was that he was conceived on top of a haystack. During his teen years, Charles left Ireland for Britain and became a celebrity thanks to his height. Most people referred to him as the wonderful Irish giant. Unfortunately, he didn't live long, and at the age of 22, he passed on. After his death, anatomist and preeminent surgeon John Hunter went against Byrne's wishes that he be buried at sea and instead reduced Charles' corpse to its skeleton and displayed it at his museum, the Hunterian Museum. In 1909, an American surgeon studied the skeleton and surmised that Charles Byrne had a pituitary tumor that caused his gigantism. Number 4. The San Diego Giant. On October 7, 1895, a newspaper known as The World reported that a mummy of the biggest man who ever lived had been found near San Diego. According to the paper, Professor Thomas Wilson, a curator in the Department of Prehistoric Anthropology in the Smithsonian Institute, together with other scientists, had inspected and even measured the skeleton. The skeleton measured roughly 9 feet, but other reports indicate that the mummy's actual height was 8 feet 4 inches. The paper also reported that the skeleton belonged to a Native American and it was prehistoric. However, due to inferior dating methods at the time, scientists could not determine the exact age. Moreover, the skeleton's height greatly puzzled the scientists because there were no records of such people existing. In the year 1908, the San Diego mummy disappeared from the museum. As a result, the San Diego Giant has always been embroiled in controversy, with some dismissing it as a hoax. Number 3. 18 strange giant skeletons. In the year 1912, the New York Times reported the discovery of 18 giant skeletons. The skeletons were discovered by a team of archaeologists from the University Beloit College of Wisconsin at an excavation near Lake Delavan. According to the article, the skeletons' heights ranged from 7 feet 6 inches to 10 feet tall. Their skulls, though human, were larger than the skulls of any race that inhabited America at the time. Moreover, they had 6 fingers, 6 toes, and a double row of teeth similar to humans, but they had regular molars in the front of the jaw. Scientists concluded that the larger-than-average skull was the result of a longer lifespan. Soon after the discovery, the skeletons disappeared, and not much is known about them since then. Many people have proposed that the government deliberately erased all manner of evidence that pointed to a race of extremely tall people or giants. Others have dismissed the reports of giants as a hoax. Either way, one cannot deny that, according to newspapers of the time, archaeologists indeed found these large human skeletons. Number 2. Iowa's mysterious mounds. In 1897, archaeologists found the skeleton of a giant while digging through a mound in Iowa. A newspaper article at the time termed the discovery a matter of official record. According to measurements, the giant must have stood at 7 feet 6 inches when alive. Unfortunately, the skeleton crumbled to dust when exposed to the air, but archaeologists unearthed other artifacts such as a collar made of boar's teeth that were around the skeleton's neck and small copper beads across the thighs. The artifacts suggest the giant was of high stature. In another mound, still in Iowa, archaeologists found a large chamber with 11 skeletons that were also quite large. The skeletons were arranged in a circle and they had their backs against the wall. A seashell that had been converted into a drinking cup was at the center of the circle, and archaeologists believe it might have been a case of mass suicide. Number 1. Serpent Mound, Ohio. The Great Serpent Mound is one of the most well-documented skeleton finds in American history. The mound is a 1,370-foot effigy mound near Pebbles. Ross Hamilton, a researcher and writer, has researched the mound thoroughly and written about the giants found at the mound. In the 1890s, another researcher, Professor Frederick Ward Putnam, excavated some of the mounds near the Serpent Mound. Though he only found 6-foot-tall skeletons, archaeologists still believed that the actual mounds harbored giants. Just recently, researcher Jeffrey Wilson discovered a postcard showing a 7-foot-tall skeleton from the Serpent Mound. No one knows if the 7-foot skeleton is among those discovered by Putnam, since he's the only person to have ever dug at the site. The debate among the archaeologists is ongoing, and even Jeffrey Wilson does not have the answers. However, one thing they all agree on is that the postcard is legitimate and that it definitely depicts a giant. What do you think? Are these documented instances of large human skeletons legit?